Let me see if I can maybe help you with some of this, especially since you're doing manual installs. Absolutely nothing wrong with installing things manual. I've done that. This program you're looking at allows me to do that. Nothing wrong with it. But one of the things you have to kind of like, or try to be aware of is the fact that the game itself. Let me show you the game. Let me start out with the game. So you see how, and I'm kind of winging this. So I'm if I confuse you, I'm going to apologize in advance. Okay, so this is my game folder, and you can see the Fallout, the Fallout 4 executable, the loader, and things like that. DLLs usually like things that are loaded with the game, by the game, whether it is an ASI loader or it's the script extender and the script extender loader for the plugins, usually has to be in the same folder as the program that's executing. And then these are subfolders. So the main folder would be called Fallout 4. This is what you would see as the installation folder. So if you would go into your system and let's say you did a reg edit, let's say you did a registry edit to bring up your registry, you could go over to where Bethesda is, let's say The Witcher, and you can see where when it installs a game such as The Witcher, it'll actually give the location of where it's installed. Some games look at the registry to find out where its data files are. And it seems kind of strange because a program has the ability to use a Windows API call, a Windows function call, to say, I want to know where I'm being launched from. Where am I being started from? And it'll come up with this folder. So all I have to do is add data. Where's data here? Data's going to be, all I got to do is add the word data to the name, and I get this. So some games will actually work without the registry being there. That's only used to know when to, it was done when the game was installed because it used the install shield through Windows, and to uninstall it. So some games don't mind, others do. It really depends, but you can see subfolders. So for example, if you're looking at, let's say, textures has its own folder name. And then there's even more categories of textures, decals, clothes, blood, armor, and here's fatigues. So you can see the actual textures of the fatigues. And the reason that game developers do this, or the reason software developers do this, it lets them organize data. It's not one massive folder where there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of files. It allows them to very, very easily organize the data and quickly reference the data without having to look through incredibly long lists. You can process all the files as a list, but then you can separate them into little quote sections depending on depending on the file location. So these are the subfolders, and these are things that the game looks at. So if you have a texture that winds up being here in this folder, which is the root folder or the installation folder, it's called the root folder, then the game won't see it, because when the game wants a texture, it looks to data, and then it looks to textures, and then it's going to look to whatever it's configured. And these are specified in the mesh. So if you were to look at meshes as an example, let's see, where's our meshes? Meshes would be objects you would see. We have those back up. Since we're in textures, we need to go to meshes. And you can see it's the same way there, where they're broken down into these. This is meshes for ammo. Fusion Cell. This was a mod I installed which changed the mesh. And meshes usually end in NIF for net immerse file. I believe NI stands for net, I for immerse, and F for file. And this is their file format for taking 3D data and putting and encapsulating it in a file, which will have potentially, I believe, some material information. There are material files now which extend that. So I think they extended the NIF using a BGSM or some file. So that's the mesh. The mesh. I can't even talk. That's the mesh. Okay. So you can see the subfolders. When you get mods, and I'll show you with this application here. So these are mods that I've downloaded. They could be any kind of mod. When I extract the mod, and it's the same for no matter which mod organizer you're using, it's the same, even if you do it manually. You extract the file into a folder, and that's what these are. These are extracted folders. So if we were to look, let's say, at this folder, we're going to do an open location. So let's take a look at the folder. You can see that this is the root of this folder. The very first folder is data. And then you can see there's an interface subfolder, and then you can see the files associated with that. So if I was to copy, if I was to go over to here, and I was to copy this folder right here, the one that, let's see, did I close that? If I was to copy this folder, let's back out to here. If I was to grab this folder right here, and I was to say copy, and I go over to where the game, because this is the root of that mod folder, and I go over to the root of the install folder. See data? See data? So if I was to copy it here, it's going to put the data file, it's going to say, okay, so let's go back over here. We're going to copy this folder. So it's going to say data, and you're going to see data here. And then you're going to see data here. So it's going to say, okay, I've got a data folder going into a data folder, so it will create the subfolders if necessary. But if, for some reason, this file right here, let's say that this interface file, see the wheel menu? Let's say that the mod author didn't provide all these different subfolders, and they just stuck it here, like this. So these don't exist. This only has this file, and you're thinking, oh, okay, well, there's the menu file. I'm going to install it, because this is the root folder of the extracted mod. It's going to put this file over. Let me move this out of the way here so we can pop both of them. We can get both of them. It'll put it here. It'll stick it over in this root folder. But that's not where the game looks for it. The game's going to look for it to be in data, interface, just like it is over here. Data, interface. So if the folder structure and the subfolder structure isn't correct, then when you install it, after you copy them over, they're going to be in the wrong location and the mod won't work, or it'll crash. And I have seen a couple of those. FOMODS, let me see if I can find you a FOMOD here. I don't know if I have one right off. Let me see. It might have been, let's see, it might have been better. See, most of them, what I do is I actually either go in and manually, I'll open up the location like this, and I will go in there and manually fix the folder and subfolder structure so I can directly install it into the game. Or my application actually does it at a very basic level. It can look at it and kind of figure some things out. It's got a long way to go, but it can kind of do it. Right now I'm trying to find, oh, now here's a good example. See, this right here, this doesn't matter. This is just a README file. So when I built this folder, when my program built this folder, it didn't know what to do with the file, so it left it where it was. This will be installed in the root folder because this is root going to root. But it's not really an important file, so I don't need it. We're going to delete it. And the meta file is just something that I have that tells me a little bit about the file. That's really all it is. This is just the metadata. Okay, so let's keep looking here. There's and I was hoping to see one that would just pop really quickly. Let me think. We might be able to do it like this. I don't know if I have these mods over here or not, because I kind of shift them around a little bit. All right, let's see. I was trying to think of one that would absolutely have a FOMOD installer. Okay, maybe UI size is a good one. Let's take a look at this one. All we're gonna do is this is the actual mod, so it's an archive file. So we're gonna need to open the archive and take a look at it. Okay, here's an example of a FOMOD. So this is the root folder. You can see there is no data folder here. So if you were to directly install this, let's say you were to extract this directly into your game, none of it's going to work because none of the data files are in the correct folders they need to be. So one of the things you can do is you can go into the FOMOD folder and you can grab the module config XML. And if you bring this up, this is the actual XML data that is used by the UI applications to install. It allows you to select certain mods to install and certain mods, to skip. And you can look up here and you can see the tags. Tags usually begin with a bracket. Okay, you see, here's the steps. This defines a series of steps. So this would more than likely in the UI show you page 1, page 2, page 3. So this says that I'm going to show a bunch of pages. So the first iteration of a step is going to be step 1, step 2, or page 1, page 2. It lets you group things together. Here's the plugins. So what it does, it literally throws up a checklist. So you can check off what you want. And then it can do conditional checking. So down in here it can say if this option is set, then give them even more options related to the option they have checked off. And this is where you can and what I look for is the descriptions. What exactly does the plugin do? And then the FOMOD will do the installing for you. It'll actually create the subfolders and it does that. And that's a FOMOD. So you can kind of see. What I do is I'll go over here to, let's say, let's back out. Let's go upwards. And you see where it says shared. Sometimes mod authors use a shared folder name. Sometimes it might be common or base. It just depends. This means that this folder here is going to be, no matter which option you choose, this is going to be common across all options. It's shared. So what I would do is I would rename this to data, because this is the root folder. I would rename this to data. Then all I have to do is decide which options, which files. Let's take a look at the options. Now remember, I can't do it here because this is the actual archive, not the file. So I would take a look at the options here, and I would select which options I want. And notice, see, there's the interface. That goes in the data folder. So what I would do is I would grab this and copy it over here to this, which I renamed to data. I would just copy it over to that, and then it would be in the correct subfolder. Some mod authors don't do that. Some mod authors just have a single file that has no subfolders, and you have to try to figure out where it goes. And sometimes they don't even tell you. Sometimes it's just like, hey, I gave you this. But those are older mods. Usually the newer mods, they don't really have, that kind of problem. But that is a FOMOD. Let's see. I think that kind of covers what you were. One other thing I was going to tell you, and I kind of lost track of it as I was going. I'll probably think of it here in a little bit, and I can actually post back on. And let's see, I went ahead and we were talking about, virtual file systems. Let's talk about file systems. Okay, so if I was to go over to here, and let's say I want to look at the game. I want to look at the game here. This is the file system that is used by Windows. It's NTFS, but it's the file system. So on the hard drive, on your hard drive, any hard drive, no matter what file system you're using, is what's called a VTOC. It's a volume table of contents. And that literally has the name of the file, more than likely the size of the file. it has properties of the file, like whether the file is hidden, archive, different file bits that you can set. It probably has, I'm just kind of guess here, if I was going to do it, it would have the last time and date stamp of the file. And what it would have is the very first block. It had the size of the file in bytes and the very first block of that file. So if the VTOC gets damaged, your data is still on your hard drive. But without the VTOC, you have to do a low sector scan of that hard drive, sector by sector, to find where these files begin. But let's stick with the VTOC thing. So the VTOC, the way that it used to work a long time ago, I'm not sure how it does now. But if you're looking at it from like a DOS thing, so it looks to the first block, and then each block points to another block. So a block can have, you can actually have data across the block. So I don't think files are split between, like let's say that your file is only going to use 1 byte out of a 512 byte block of data. I don't think another file shares that. I think that's just lost space. But other file systems might find a way to use it just to squeeze every ounce of space out of your hard drive. And that's when you would say, okay, I'm going to the next sector, and that's how it chains together to load your data in. So that's how the file system would work. Now with a virtual file system, if you're going more towards, let's say, Mod Organizer 2 or Mod Organizer 1, it creates a virtual file system. So it loads the file names from the game, from the installation folder, the root folder. It gets all these files, and then it takes all of these mods that you check off. So if you were to equate this to Mod Organizer, the green square is an active mod. It's an active mod. The ones that are not checked off are inactive. However, in mine, I'm not sure how Mod Organizer 2 does it. In mine, just because it's checked off doesn't mean that the mod is installed. It means that it will put, if there's a plugin, it'll put it in my load order, but the game won't use that entry because that mod is not installed in my game. And I do that because, as an example, I'm testing out Sim Settlements 2 right now. Just doing a test, just for the fun of it. And kind of reporting back some of the things that I find, just kind of have fun and just check it out. And I noticed, okay, so in the process of doing that, I don't want to upgrade scripts. I kind of want to know till the test is done, then I can upgrade everything later. And Workshop Framework and Sim Settlements 2 has an update. So I can go ahead and extract that file and activate it, but it's not installed. And what I can do is I can go over to here and I can say, okay, I want to see all the mods that are in my load order that are active, that I'm saying that I want in my load order, but yet they are not installed yet. And then I can go in here and let's say like with Atomic Precombines, I can then hop over to find the mod. See here, over here, I can find the mod. And then if I want to, I can go in and I can install it. And we can do a check. I can actually check to see, and you can see that the file is not installed. It's missing a file, so it's not installed. So this is kind of an extension of a manual method. A virtual file system does the same thing, but instead of using the actual system folders and copying files to these folders, it puts them in a virtual system. It makes its own list, its own VTOC in a sense, specific just for the files that it wants to pass to another application. And then it passes that, it hooks into the game, it'll hook the game, and then it says, okay, I want you to use this list of files instead of the actual system list. That's what a virtual file system does. And the reason, and you have to hook the game to do it. And it caused problems back with Mod Organizer 32. They had to find a new way to do it, and I think they finally figured that out. And then there are some pluses to it. One of the pluses to using something like Mod Organizer 2 is it doesn't really change. It doesn't really put anything in your game's data folder, but I'm fine with that. I back on my game drive, which I actually have a game drive. I back off my games. So there should be a file here. This is folder installs. But I also back my games off. So I can literally have them backed off onto a NAS box if I want. And I do have a backup of it. So if I completely mess up my game folder, I just delete it. But what I do, I don't delete it, I rename it, and then I create a new Fallout 4 folder. You know, you just go in here and do create folder, like new folder, and then I copy everything from the backup folder, which is the vanilla game, over to that folder, and then I have a clean slate. And the reason I didn't want to delete the folder, my previous game just yet, is I might want to use the settings in it, or if I've done like I need the transfer settlements, because if I have transfer settlement blueprints, I'll want to keep those in there, because those are exported as a file, so I don't lose some of my data. I can still get access to it. And then once I get my new game built, I can then copy those games over, the files over that I need, any files, things like that. And then I don't necessarily need, I don't need that, you know, that game folder anymore. I can just delete it. Or I might say, okay, the interface folder is exactly like I want it, so I'm going to copy the interface from the renamed folder to my current game folder. So there's all kinds of ways you can really work with the data to get the you know, the current data like you want it. And it's the same thing that mod managers do. It's just you because a mod manager really does it manually. It's just programmatically done. And including with a virtual file system like Mod Organizer 2. It still does all that manually. It still has to decide the order, the actual order of your mods. See, this is just an alphabetical list. The order of the installation for me would be over here. This would be the order of the installation, which is separate than the load order. So that would be the order. This is the load order itself. So the Lord, oh gosh, the Lord of the Rings, the load order, the order of your plugins in your load order doesn't necessarily have to be the order of install, because there may be a plugin that you know, they can be the same, but oftentimes they can be different. When you use like a mod organizer, you know, well, actually, if I'm thinking of the in-game thing, you can. What the game does, like let's say you use the in-game mod organizer. Whenever you download a mod, it kind of installs it in your game. So it manually, but doesn't show you, it actually copies everything over. Let's go back up out of here. I want to scoot back up this way. I don't need that. Yeah, don't need, is that the game one? I think that was my game one. Yeah, that was my game one. Okay, so let's go back over to here. Steam Maps Common. Let's go back into Fallout 4. So it literally copies it over here. But it doesn't put, and I'm going to show you. Here's the load order file that we were talking about. Okay, so there's a load order file right here. So what this is, and mod organizers generate this file. And you can see where there's an asterisk in front of it. See the asterisk? So the asterisk means that, this asterisk right here, means that at least to Fallout 4 and Skyrim, the plugin is active. If there is no asterisk in front of it, it's not active. And I add additional comments, so that if anybody actually sees the load order, you can literally see the categories that I put everything in. Because anything that's a comment that starts with this pound sign, it's going to be ignored. But this is what the load order looks like. So manually, I would have to copy this. You know, I can do like I could move it, let's say up here. I can do that manually. Or with mod organizers, or any type of mod organizer, you can literally go in and just grab something and let's see. We can grab it like this, and then we can move it to any location we want, and it will rearrange. It'll rearrange. So that's what I was talking about. So, but that's what I wanted. Let me find. Oh, not that. What am I looking for? Not that. I'm looking for this. Yeah, we don't want to save this. Okay. And what we can do is this. If we just to make absolutely sure, we're going to save it back live again. Okay. So that's what the load order is. So that's a file the game uses. Now, if you're talking about older games like Fallout 3, Oblivion, Fallout Vegas, it goes by the date stamp. So the load order, the way the game loads, the way the actual game loads the plugins is, if I remember correctly, it's the date stamp of the file. It doesn't matter when, and it doesn't use the little asterisk in front of it. So there's nothing there. So if it's not in the, if it's not in the plugin, if it's not in the load order, you would think, okay, it's not going to load it. However, some of them, if the plugin still exists in the game, like if it's still installed in the game, but you don't put it, it's not, well, not you personally, but if you don't put, if it's not in the load order file, it'll still count that plugin towards your plugin limit. So not a good thing. So yeah, and but it loads it by date stamp. So putting it in any order is not going to make a difference, because it's going to say, oh, I'm going to sort these myself in date order, because their logic was, if you're looking at DLCs and mods are produced over time. So the newer mod would come last, and the older mods would have a much older date stamp. So we can make sure we put them in the right order. Well, that's not necessarily a good way to do it, because every time you install a game, it changes the date stamp. If you install a mod, it changes the date stamp. Depending on which one you're looking at, the creation date is now different. So there is a chance that the creation date will be the current time the file was created on your system, not the actual date the file was created from the mod author, and that messes everything up. So older mod managers, and I had to put it in mine, will say, okay, if it's an older game, then we need to timestamp the files, the plugins, in the order of the load order. So that way they're loaded properly. Now, the Oblivion remaster, it's not going to be bound by that type of rule. It's going to use the asterisk. That was the new Bethesda way of doing it. So I hope that helps a little bit with some of this, and like I say, some of it may be the data structure. I actually had a situation where I went in to do icons, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to install Def UI, I just want the icons. So I went to install the icon pack, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go into my Fall UI or into one of my UIs, and I'm going to select, I want these icons. Instantly crashed. Go into my Pip-Boy, instant crash, because the XML file has references to the icon names that are not there. And some mod authors will their plugins, their F4SC plugins will check for that. Some do not. If it does not, it'll crash. If it does check for it, it'll simply say it's missing or it's not the proper one. So you have to kind of watch it. There's not really a standard. Mod authors don't always follow a given standard. So it's kind of sometimes hit and miss, and it's a little bit of work. Okay, so I hope that helps. And yeah, modding games is a blast, man. It's really cool, especially when you get it to work. And even if you don't get it to work, you can keep what it is that you think works, and then next time you play, you rearrange it a little bit. You kind of try to find some structure, or find someone who's successfully got something that's working, and then kind of say, okay, how did you do it? And like the way I do it is I broke it down into chunks. I've got my vanilla game. So I'm going to put in my unofficial patch, I'm going to put in the script extender and whatever plugins that the script extender uses. I'm going to launch my game. Does it run? Because if I put in a whole bunch of mods first and try to run it and then it crashes, okay, which one did it? So now I can isolate it to a type of mod, a block of mods, a category of mods. And then I figure, okay, the next safest thing to add would be, let's say, textures, where I want to retexture my game. And then meshes might be the next one I'll add, as long as it's not necessarily new NPCs, but like something that changes the mesh, the text, the mesh, the shape, the 3D shape of an object. I might throw that in there. Does it work? And then I'll put armor and weapons. Does it work? So over time, over time you kind of add to your mod list. But what you do is you have a base mod, a base game that you can use for the basis of every one of your modded games. In other words, these are things I cannot live without. Everything else is bells and whistles or candy, but I cannot live without these mods. And that's kind of like how I approached it. And until I did that approach, which is why you will see categories in here. If you go up here, you'll actually see different categories. See, that's why I have different categories up here. So that helped me to organize them, so that way I could add them in as a block. So let's say I wanted to add all the textures in. So let's say I have a new modded game, I want to do it quickly. I can just go up in here. Well, not in this part per se, but I can go over here. Actually, it's over in the other list. It's over here, where I can go in here and I can literally say that I want to install a block. So let's see, install section. And so if I was to install section, it'll only install these two mods. So that way I can say at this point I know the game is, and you can do those manually too. And you look at your installation order and you can do it manually. So I hope that helps. Yeah, and good luck, and just have fun. And if you need anything else, I've got to hop off here. I've got to go do some other things. I got some testing I need to do. But if you need anything, just holler, and someone here we'll get, we'll see it, and we'll post back and see if we can help. All right. So have fun, and just enjoy the game.